Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. And another heavyweight news and note smash-up video today, starting with Trevor, Bryan, Mahmoud, Charr. So another chapter between these two who've almost fought a couple of times. It has begun. So the WBA ordering the current WBA world champion, or regular champion as it was formerly known, Trevor Bryan, to face the champion in recess, Mahmoud Charr. So these two were meant to fight January 30th this year, but Charr claims that Don King, Bryan's promoter, basically stiffed him, wouldn't help him get to the United States in terms of visa documentation. And of course, Johnny on the spot was one of King's fighters to jump in and face Bryan. That was Stavern. So the WBA has now ordered the fight again. It's got a few more restrictions as reported by Dan Raphael. So there is a purse bid which is going to be on December the 9th. And Raphael says one thing about the WBA purse bid is how strict it is. Unlike usual, there will be no extensions allowed, and instead of the winning promoter having to put up 10% of the winning bid at the purse bid, they must now put up 25% for this one. Also, bidders must appear in person, no more video conferences, electronic or phone bids. So this fight, I guess the question is, will it happen? Bryan, Charr, it's sort of been an ongoing saga for a couple of years. Charr has been threatening legal action, and perhaps this is part of the reason the WBA is clamping down with some heavier restrictions than normal. Remembering that Don King put up $2 million last time, of which he would have got, this is Charr, $1.5 million. Of course, he was robbed of that payday because he wasn't in that fight. So this one here apparently going to be 50-50. So if it happens, I mean, and that's a big if, because remember, this is another chapter. Who knows how many more sort of shenanigans will be going on. And it wouldn't surprise me if there's some more shadiness that happens. And then all of a sudden, if a purse bid is reached, and then someone like Charr ultimately can't get to the fight because of more antics. That's how I'll sort of put it. Remembering Don King does have other fighters, and who knows, maybe he will, and this is me sort of using the crystal ball here, because if there is more antics like we've seen before and Charr can't fight Bryan, and there is a fight and it's a defense of Bryan's so-called world title, it wouldn't shock me if it was Eric Molina or something like that, because he's another Don King fighter. So there is a few other Don King fighters floating around, but yeah, if this goes ahead, it will almost shock me, because clearly this has been a saga in of itself. Apart from Mahmoud Charr not having fought before fighting Christopher Lovejoy earlier this year, that was a saga all of its own too. So these guys have really been almost doing nothing in recent years. Have only fought, once in 4 years for Charr, once in the past 3 years for Trevor Bryan. Will these two come together? Probably not. Moving on, Joyce wants Tyson Fury. He's making that known to the world, saying on social media, "I've got lots of respect for Gypsy King as a friend and as a fighter, but my schedule is free in February. Hashtag let's do this. Hashtag WBO #1. Hashtag WBC #2. Hashtag the Juggernaut." So those are the current rankings and sanctioning bodies for the WBO and WBC for Joyce. Fury, seemingly, according to his promoter, Frank Warren, is going to have a fight February-March 2022 time. The question is, will it be Joyce? Because obviously he's campaigning for it. He is a fighter that is with Frank Warren. But for him, that does not mean necessarily that he is going to get the fight. Remembering Tyson Fury, after the so-called voluntary or whatever he ends up taking here, he is likely to be in for a massive fight, potentially for undisputed, against the winner of Alexander Usyk and Anthony Joshua, and they're set to have their rematch in 2022 sometime. So would Tyson Fury actually fight Joyce? And I know some people will say, yes, I'm sure he will. They're in the same stable, it makes sense, and that's all true. But the reality of it is, Joyce, not a massive name. Will it bring huge money? Because if it's a $20 million fight, Tyson Fury probably would take it. But if it's a case that it's, a much reduced payday, say if it was £4 or £5 million, somewhere there or thereabout, maybe he would weigh up the risk and reward. Remembering, After the first Deontay Wilder fight, Tyson Fury went off and fought Otto Wallin. Tom Schwarz, he dropped down from that world title level. So we could see something again, and there has been one name that's been persistently linked with Fury as a potential opponent. It's Ajit Kabayel. And I think that Kabayel shapes as a different fight and potentially a less taxing fight on Tyson Fury than Joyce. So a lot of water to go under the bridge on the situation, just because they're in the same stable and it would work for Joyce, who's begging for a title shot. And you've also got Frank Warren, who desperately needs to have some big events to breathe a bit more life into his business. Just because everyone wants it doesn't mean Tyson Fury will accept it. We will have to see, but I like that fight should it happen. And obviously I think Tyson Fury goes in a favourite, but it's a much tougher fight than the Kabayel one. Moving on, the unbeaten Chinese heavyweight Zhang Zhilei returns this weekend, and seemingly with a change of opponent. So previously it had been announced that he was facing this guy here on screen. I forget his first name, Marquez being the last. It was a tune-up, he's a no-mark, but seemingly according to BoxRec, he is now going to be facing Craig Lewis. And Craig Lewis is actually a decent journeyman, so this is actually not a terrible fight for Zhang Zhilei in respect of coming back from obviously that performance against Jerry Forrest, where he started strong and faded badly, ended up in hospital for a number of days, etc., a number of issues. Lewis is actually a very tough and durable guy. He's fought the likes of Carlos Takam, took him the distance. Jermaine Franklin took him the distance. Majority decision loss to Junior Farr also went the distance. So it's not a terrible opponent to get some rounds in activity, and I think after his performance against Jerry Forrest, Zhang Zhilei actually needs to go in there and look good, and if he can get some meaningful rounds and show us actually he's over whatever, because we never got all the details about what happened with him, but there was something wrong with his preparations, and the blood test showed this, that and the other, so hopefully he is back in form. And we will see. I mean, but he is a guy approaching 40 now, so unbeaten, and really has not stepped up to the level that I think we would have expected by now. This is coming off that sort of win against Forrest, but obviously inactivity for a period of time now. When was the last time he fought? We'll just get back into his box rec. So it was February. So this will be his second fight of the year. And bearing in mind, 38 years old, so he's got to get cracking, because it feels like silver medal in Beijing in 2008, turned pro, probably later than he should, and it's been a bit of a slow burn, a very slow burn for Zhang Zhilei. Another guy that seemingly is on some sort of slow burn, and if I can just get to him here, Sergey Kuzmin. So he returns this week as well. He's facing this guy here on screen, Igor de Silva. So unbeaten guy out of Brazil, 10-0, something there or thereabouts. So this is the main event on a card in Russia. Yeah, not great. Sergey Kuzmin, not really up to much at the moment. You do, okay, I accidentally like that. I don't like the fight, that's for sure. So Kuzmin, yeah, you got to ask the question, what's he doing? Also been a little bit inactive, but if this is his ambition and what they're sort of seemingly setting up for him, you'd hate to think where he's really going. Currently ranked 15, currently his record at 15-2 in the heavyweight division, but obviously has not looked great in recent years. So those clips there and that those different photos are from their open training day, as the sort of translation says here. Both these athletes flew into Moscow yesterday. Brazilian was preparing to fight from his native Sao Paulo, and Sergey Kuzmin spent the final stage of training as Krasnodar. Both opponents, da-da-da-da-da. Anyway, not great, is it? Moving on, Ivan Dychko set to face the ghost of Alexander Ustinov, and that will be on December the 12th. Ustinov in recent years has been just selling his sort of name recognition and record for paydays. That's all it really has been. So it's kind of been pretty lackluster in recent years. He's 44 years old at this point. He was absolutely smoked by Vladislav Serenko last time out, and that was in the first round. And obviously a few years ago he was beaten by Michael Hunter, even Mahmoud Charr, he's just not good. He beat Ustinov back in 2017 to claim that so-called WBA regular title. Joyce beat him up as well, But diminishing returns and facing a guy in Ustinov who was basically trying to cash out with any final paydays, as is a guy in Lucas Browne. So his upcoming fight has shifted by a day. So Browne versus Faiga Opelu, otherwise known as Django, now on December the 4th. And rounding out this heavyweight news and notes mashup video. So for New Zealand fans, you're not getting Parker and Chisora on DAZN. This is going to be on pay-per-view, and I believe also in Samoa too. There's a cost, but at least for New Zealand viewers, $39.95 will be on Sky Sport, the New Zealand iteration of it. Anyway, what do you make of it all? Drop a comment loud and often, hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.